Welcome to another episode of the Hospitality Mentor Podcast. And today I am very excited. I've got my friend Ellie Pritikin, the founder of Hudson Creative Studio, here on the podcast. Ellie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Well, Ellie, look, first I got to tell the listeners here, if you haven't had a chance, make sure to check out his website, Hudson Creative Studio, because they build some of the best websites out there for hospitality companies. And we happen to be a client over at Tangy Management. So you can check out what he created for us at tangymgmt.com. But before we get into your story, why don't you give us like the 30-second download of what you do so listeners know before we get into your story?
Absolutely. And thank you for being a client. Very proud of the website
Yeah,
built for you.
it's
It's one of the
beautiful.
best, I think. Just a 30-second download for us. I'm the founder of Hudson Creative Studio. Our primary focus has been building incredibly flexible, powerful, high converting, direct booking websites. And my background in technology and creative and messaging really put me in a place where I'm able to deliver this for operators, well, like yourself, kind of understanding the need, helping to hone the message both from the written perspective, but even more so visually. And beyond that, we have our very own piece of software that is running on your website right now that we
Mm-hmm.
call HomeRunner, that we've been developing the entire time that we've been building websites. It's just about 3.5 years. I say we started building it from day two. And the big news here is that about a week ago, we released it as a standalone product that could be used on any WordPress website without rebuilding or having any specific agency handle the website itself.
I love it. And it's a great tool. Check it out on our website. You can see how it's operating and check it out on his website as well. But we'll get all the links in there. But I want to get into the story, right? I want to talk about your story because it is unique. And we always ask the same question of everybody was, what was your first job in hospitality?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Matter of fact, I wasn't sure what my answer was going to be, but thank you for prompting me on how wide is the hospitality industry. It is not working in a hotel specifically necessarily. I worked in food industry going back to my college days. I started, I think, working in the cafeteria, helping set up lunches and dinners. And there is an ethos, there is an energy and a rhythm to it. I learned how to properly cut vegetables, using my knuckles as a guard for the knife. I
Yep.
learned food safety rules. And throughout my early career, I've worked in a few of those places. I worked at a coffee shop and as a barista for a couple of years. I moved, I'm in New Orleans right now. When I first moved to New Orleans, one of my first jobs was catering at the Superdome
Wow.
through a company called Centerplate. So we were running suites for guests and handling all of the food prep and all the stuff around it. So I'm definitely not new to the industry itself.
Oh, it's amazing. You've been doing that for a while. And so I would talk to people. I say, all right, he's been in the food industry. He's what he wants to study. But then I go and start taking some notes here. And I see you went to rabbinical school and you're at Yeshiva University. So I took a different route. Were you going to become a rabbi who serves food as well? What was the goal when you were going to school?
Great question. Yes, there was a time when I was straight on a path to becoming a rabbi and probably becoming a missionary of a sort and going to a congregation. Um, um, I went through an Orthodox Judaism earlier in my life, maybe between the ages of 13, 14 through 21, 22, and I went through a full yeshiva system. I have a Bachelor of Science in Rabbinical Studies in theology, and then separately, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Computer Science. And I will say that uh, my soul continues to be nourished by the things I've learned and experienced in my rabbinical days. I'm not sure if I'm able to put any of these skills directly into work, but soft skills around learning, about curiosity and principles, there a lot of that still is at work.
So I want to ask about this, right? So you had this goal. You were studying since you were 14 to do this. When does, because a lot of people in life face this decision like, all right, that's not what I want to continue doing. How does that happen for you when you say, no, that's not for me?
True, true. I think I reached a point where I was asking myself whether I was opening up opportunities or kind of defining them really early in my life. And something that I have always in me is this curiosity, just openness and wanting to learn. And the pure orthodoxy of the Judaism was a bit constricting in what areas I can position myself into and dive into as far as learning goes. So as it were, I left it. I left it in a very valuable, memorable place of my past.
And so when people make big decisions like that, sometimes their family may try to sway them one way or another. Was that something that happened to you, or you knew, like, all right, I got to continue on with what I'm doing. This was not meant for me.
This is entirely my own. I came, maybe just zooming out just a little bit. I came to United States at 16 and went straight into this rabbinical college. It was honestly, I like to say, a bit of a Harry Potter experience where I was outsider, a stranger to all of it, the country and the culture and the systems. And I spent a few years just learning and growing really fast. But I was on my own. My family was not involved in my decision making, so this is entirely naturally coming from me.
I love it. So you continue on, and you have an interesting mix of history here. So why don't you give us, because I want to get to where you are now and how you built what you've built now. Why don't you kind of give us a run through of how you started working in tech and in graphic arts? You worked with the big company at Spears Group. Maybe kind of give us, a quick run through of what you've done, and I'll
Yeah,
prep you with some questions as we
yeah,
go.
definitely. I have this inherent love for technology that started when I was 10 years old in Soviet Union, now Ukraine, when my father bought me my first computer when I was 10. And immediately I just felt so empowered by being able to create these algorithmic statements, these if statements, these directions that will just get followed. And the only bottleneck is my imagination. Like, what can I ask the computer to do? One of the first things I built was a graphic design software where I would just use the cursor keys on the keyboard, up, down, down, left, right, and just create this line that stayed on the screen. And I traced some images and created some images. And the power of that just never left me. Just the fact that I'm able to do these things and that there's really no rule book around that. Um, so I went to college after rabbinical college. I went to college for computer science and actually pretty quickly realized that just dry computer science of programming languages was not something that was catching my passion. I started to explore Photoshop and just expressing myself visually was a big thing for me. My first job out of college was actually for the American Stock Exchange. I was a Unix system administrator for the American Stock Exchange.
Mhm.
We were, running these big servers, and my job was creating reports around them. And I am proud to say that it was a really manual job for creating those reports. Early on, I developed a system that automated it from within, and something that would take me, 4 days out of the week would just magically happen while I was on lunch break.
That's so cool.
So this again, this desire to just use the computers to
Mhm.
expand the ability rather than just use it as another tool, as another cog. Uh, but as I mentioned, my desire to go into the visual messaging started to take over just without me even thinking about it, and I started to lose interest in the pure admin, sysadmin things, giant Unix servers, command lines, and started playing around with that. I did get laid off. I got laid off 2 years after September 11th. It was
Tough time.
a tough time for sure. There was the first
Mhm.
ever layoffs at that company, and honestly, that was a blessing because I probably would have stayed in that cubicle way longer than I should have. I got laid off, and I kind of put my head into both. I was freelancing as a graphic designer and a web developer early on, doing very unimpressive work, which you have to do when you start out. You just have to get that out.
Yep.
Well, working in a coffee shop, which was a big part of hospitality and just talking to people, being curious. It was a great opportunity too. And then that developed year over year. Then I moved to New Orleans, continued the freelance work, and then started with the Spears Group. Spears Group here, I was, I think, employee number two of this really cool agency that was just getting started. And as I stepped into that role with my experience and my ability to learn and the skills that I already had, I basically became the creative department for the agency. And we went from what, two, three people to, I believe, the agency as at about 20, and is definitely one of the top three in New Orleans doing some incredible work. And I continue to stay in touch with them.
No, it's amazing. And you were there for a long time. And so I wanted to kind of jump back because you were forced into kind of making your own business while you were doing some hospitality jobs, I'm sure, to keep the bills going and, had to survive.
Yeah.
But you were working out that muscle, right? That graphic design, the web design. Like I was reading some of the descriptions that you had there, like making CD covers and doing different things for people and all the stuff that we grew up looking at back in the 90s and 2000s and doing these for things for people. So when you get into the Spears group, as you said, employee number 2, you have all this kind of like creativity flowing.
Yeah.
Did you get to put that to work right away, or do you have to, because when you work with clients, they're like, well, that's not really what I had in mind. I don't really like this. What was that like when you're trying to use your creativity for other people?
So a lot of learning, a lot of learning. One of the first things we dove into when I joined Spears Group was putting out a magazine. And putting out a magazine is not the same thing as making a flyer in Photoshop. That is a multi-page text flow with ads and requirements. It goes to a proper print shop. So I spent the weekend just deep diving, and I learned InDesign is the program that professionals use to create such publications. I spent the weekend just doing nothing but watching tutorials, and I came back the next week, kind of like Neo in Matrix. Like I know Kung Fu, I know InDesign, and and then I just learned by doing and doing it again and doing it again, making mistakes, and then also talking to customers who said that's not what we asked for. Talking to customers is a huge part of any business, and understanding what they want and learning how to tease that need out. That's something that I've developed and continue to nurse throughout now, because developing that sense of empathy for what the customer wants. What are they really concerned about? What are they not
Right.
telling you about? Oftentimes, customer will not have the language that will really explain exactly in technical terms what they need, and just stepping into their shoes and really, really reading between the lines is a soft skill that has helped me quite a bit.
And so when you were there, were you building websites? Were you creating things like that for other clients when you were at Spears? Or was it like, what was your day like? 'Cause you were there for a long time, right? 11 years. So your days are changing and changing. But towards the end, what was it like?
We were running campaigns, we were building websites, we were creating brand identities, we were doing marketing efforts, running events for other brands. So just everything around it. It wasn't like a specific graphic design job. It was the whole approach. I was the creative director
Right.
my entirety of the stay. Though, to be fair, in the early days, the creative director of a department of which I was the only member. But as the time went on, the creative department grew, and having that cohesiveness and solving problems. Really, graphic design is about solving problems, as is web design, as is direct bookings, as is just about anything that we work on. Understanding what problems you solve rather than focusing on is it pretty, is an
Yeah.
important distinction to make.
And so here's the part that I think listeners will like, because a lot of people have ideas to create a business. They have an idea like, oh, I've been thinking about this for a while, and they've been in their jobs for a long time, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, a decade goes by. You're working at Spears Group for 11 years and change. How does this come up for you where you're like, all right, I'm starting Hudson Creative Studio? Was like, all right, I'm getting into an argument with somebody? Was it just the natural evolution? Was it during COVID? Hey, I want to try something else because life's short. How does this start percolating? I want to get into the how to you started putting this together.
Great question. You know what? COVID was a big kick for me into kind of seeing what am I doing, what am I putting focus on. Uh, I did not have an easy time, as COVID was rolling in. I was just a ball of anxiety, and I quickly realized that I needed to understand what my body is doing, what my mind is doing. I can't just go on autopilot. So I went on a journey that continues of self discovery, learning about myself, learning about what it means to be a man in the world in general. And from there, so many great things happened. So when the time came, I think I was ready. I was ready for my next opportunity with work, and I got introduced into the vacation rental space on the premise of there's some customers that need a website uh, because the website options maybe are scarce, and they can use some help. And at that point, building direct booking websites was a bit simpler. Mostly it was around placing a widget
Yeah.
on a page, maybe another widget here and there. So the focus was just the websites themselves, sort of like how is the brand presented, which is exactly what my core competency was around. I have this um, almost like an intuition about what the brand is trying to communicate, and then how to expand that and say more while tapping into the vision that the brand is setting up. So, when my clients come to me, they don't need to present me with the exact layout of every page. If I can tap into their vision,
Hmm.
I can expand on it and elevate it and make the whole thing feel like it belongs together. And that is something that is actually a key part of conversion when it comes to, well, any business direct booking website, because it creates trust.
Yep.
People are pattern making machines, at their core. And when patterns make sense, the defense systems relax. When patterns do not make sense, something is amiss, defenses go up, and people are a lot less likely to go through what it is that you're suggesting they do. So
That's true.
cohesiveness around that.
That's true. So I want to get to now how you decide to make this start happening, because you have a job, you know, for all intents and purposes. It sounds like it's going pretty well. I know when I left hotels, you're like, what are you doing? You're starting your own company. What was it like for you that was the trigger? Because I know how I set it up. I've told listeners here, like I made a list of all the things I'm good at. Here's what I want to do. Very
Mhm.
strategic on the things I would accept. How was it for you when you decided to start?
It was slow, and then it was all at once, all of a sudden. I started with building one website and another. I think maybe I started around July or August of 2021.
And this was just on the side? Like you had a little side
Exactly.
hustle going?
Exactly. I still had my full-time job, and I said, "Look, why not? Why not build a couple of websites?" And um, fast forward, November is when I put in my 2-week notice. So the time between July and November is when I tried to do it as a side hustle, and quickly realized that it's a lot bigger than a side hustle. And I did not want to do a disservice to Spears Group, to my full-time job. I didn't want to give them less of myself. So there came a point where I had to step off that cliff, and it was nerve-wracking. Um, but it was such a pivotal moment. It's the first time in my life, really, that, not counting the freelancing, which maybe is a little bit different, but a full run business, uh, I still get goosebumps thinking about the transition that I went through from an
Yeah.
employee, of a W-9 employee, 9 to 5, to actually owning the business that I am putting efforts into.
And so how does it start for you, right? Was it, all right, I made the logo first? Was it the brand? Was it that I knew I had certain clients, so I feel safe to be able to jump? What were some of the things that you did at the beginning to, like, because we have listeners here, they have this dream. I'm going to start my company.
Yeah.
How did you really take that first jump? Because a lot of people do get scared and analysis paralysis. They stop and they continue doing their job for the next 25, 30 years.
So true, so true. I think I was thinking about starting this agency, I think, for at least 3 years before I did, while I was working at the Spears Group. And let me tell you the silliest reason why I did not. I could not come up with a good name. I kept thinking about what to call it. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to be interesting. I wanted to communicate the right degree of professionalism while keeping people engaged. And I just went through a few names, and I just, I had doubts, and those doubts kept me from moving forward. Then I heard somebody talk about that exact problem, and they said, "Well, if you're not sure, just name it after the street you live on." I live on Hudson Place. Hudson Place is my address.
That's good.
And I said, "You know what? I could have, of all the streets that I could have lived on, it's not a bad one. As far as the name goes,
Yeah.
it's a good one." So I just went with that. Hudson Creative. I looked for which .coms were available at the time, and went with Hudson Creative Studio. I felt like that kind of has this airy feeling where it's not a single focus, but things that happen in a creative studio. I registered an LLC. I opened a Chase business account from get-go. I wanted to make sure that my future accountant didn't have to tease apart transactions from my personal
Personals.
account. That's
Yep.
something that I got early, and thankfully, I'm glad I did. And that was it. That developing a logo, thankfully, that's something that I was able to uh, do on my own.
Mhm.
Setting up a website, buying a domain name, these things I already know how to do. So it was really not that difficult to just be ready, as far as a LLC goes.
That's amazing. All right. So you got the logo, you got the name, you got your bank account open. Do you start to freak out because I don't have an office and how am I going to meet people? Or was it, hey, I'm going to work out of my home? Because a lot of people get stuck on that too. How did you start to piece it together?
Yeah, well, I started working from my home, and I still working from my home. I
Mhm.
have a decent sized home office, and Yeah, I love it here. I have some companions that keep me
Hey,
keep me company. Just out of the frame, oftentimes.
yeah.
Emotional support creatures of sorts. Um, like I said, when I started, things were already happening. So
Yes,
I
you had.
really, I there was no lull that put me in a state of anxiety of like whether I made the wrong decision or not. I was getting business, and I felt like I was in the right place at the right time, where all these operators were saying, we don't want to be just another co-host and another box on Airbnb along with millions and millions and millions of others. We want to be our own brand, and that is something that I inherently understand. So putting that together, helping these operators to just really get into their brand, communicate that brand to their target audience, to their guests, to their future homeowners, and do it visually and technically is something that I just stepped right into. And
Yeah, it sounds like you're passionate about it. So it's one thing to have like your business is interesting, right? Because you do have some recurring revenue, but a lot of it is when you build it out. And so that's hard to sometimes do. So how do you always find new clients? Are you going to networking events? Is it all referrals? How are you finding people?
great, great question. Pardon me.
All right.
I think without being intentional about it, I stepped into a really nice formula for building what we ultimately are, I think, becoming. And I'll go back to answer your question in a bit. We are a web agency, web and creative agency. So you come to us and say, I want a website or I want a piece of creative, a brand, a campaign. We do that. We also, from day two, I say, started building our own software to handle PMS integrations. This was key because we just were not going to cut it. We had a bigger vision for what the guest experience should be like on the direct booking website.
Yes.
So we had full-time developers. Well, one developer at first. We're now at three, working on the software from get-go. However, having a full-time team of developers can get expensive, even though they are overseas. It's still, I make sure they are paid well, and it is an investment. Now, if I would knew I was starting a SaaS company, I would worry. That means I probably need to raise capital. I probably need to talk to investors, and there is definitely a lot of good about that, but there are a lot of caveats about raising money as well.
Yes.
So thankfully, I did not need to do that. The project fees basically ended up helping us be fully self-funded. So for the past 3.5 years that we've been doing this nonstop, we've been sustained by both project fees and the recurring monthly revenue, which of course is the holy grail of building a sustainable business. Because you're right,
Yes.
living from project to project is a tricky one. You can have a great month and then you can have a month of nothing, and then you just question your entire existence.
Yep.
So we're at a place where we actually, from the financial viability standpoint, we don't even need to take on another customer in order to be able to maintain the full-time staff for developing our software and just moving on, which is a great place to be because there is no desperation there. We're not jumping at every possible opportunity. We want to work with customers that we know we can deliver the best value to, not just anybody who walks through the door.
That's a great answer. And so for listeners, if you're starting the company, think about that. Because I have so many people say, I want to be a consultant. I want to do this. Yeah. Consultants fix problems. And once that problem is done, where are you going to eat next? You're going to always be hunting. So I love that you have recurring revenue. I have businesses that have that as well. And it helps, like you said, you can sleep at night. You know that you can go work with people that you want to work with, and you don't have to get desperate to do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So I like that you've said that. So now you've got Hudson Creative Studio opened. We're up and running. You got clients coming in. I'm one of those clients now. So listeners, again, go check out what we built together because you can get a great idea. He came up with so much of it. He truly is an artist. What is it that now you're excited about? Because you've been open now 3 years, a couple of months, right? You're doing some successful things. What is it now that you're most excited about?
Thank you for asking. So as we built our software, one of the conversations we had pretty regularly, especially as the software got to be great, and it did get there after a year or two. It was in a really great solid state of handling all of the API communications and then the entire front end for the guest experience around booking. And important to know that the way we build the software is entirely by talking to customers. We didn't just imagine what it should be. We we have 100 plus live customers that are ongoing with us right now. But I probably talked to, at least 5 times as many customers throughout that whole course. And just hearing the pain points, hearing these wishes and hopes of what they would like to do. They have business ideas or they have limitations. That is really the core of how we built our software. And just about, I think maybe a year and a half ago, I decided to give it the software a name because I was tired of saying API integrated direct booking engine. That's just a mouthful and it
Yeah.
means nothing.
That's what made
So
us. Yes.
I spent some time workshopping the name, and the name that I ended up with is HomeRunner. One word, HomeRunner. I based it off of the Blade Runner as a concept,
Okay.
where we're hustling and running these homes for the operators and for the guests. Kind of a cyber pop culture a little bit to it. Didn't hurt. And so the conversation we often had was, your websites are too expensive for us. We can't afford you, which is fair. We're not the least expensive option, and that's conscious.
Nope.
But can we just use your booking software? We already have a website. Can we just use your booking software? And the answer was, yeah, I think we will get there one day, but not yet. Not yet. We were focusing on other things. And I think around November of this year, that changed, and we decided that the time has come. The time has come to just set HomeRunner free and allow for all of these customers to use it without having to take on the project with Hudson Creative Studio. And what that means is that the same software that we've been developing for over 3 years, and all through the experience and the feedback and requests from our customers, is now available as a fully standalone piece of software. And currently, it's available for any WordPress website. And when I say any WordPress website, I mean literally any WordPress website. Did your nephew build a website? It will work on it. Did you hire somebody from Fiverr? It will work on it. Do you have a website that's like 5 years old, but you love everything about it? The SEO is great. You don't want to touch it. You also spend a bunch of money on it and just not ready to go through the process again. HomeRunner will work on it. It's got no theme dependencies. It's got no technical dependencies. If we can install a plugin, it will work. Not to say the HomeRunner is a plugin. Plugin is the delivery connection to the website, but that's where we are. So now, as of literally a week and a few days, 10 days ago, HomeRunner is now fully available as a standalone. So what I'm going through, Steve, now is product launch, something I've never done before, and it's quite an adventure. I don't know what I was expecting, but it's a ride. It's a ride.
It's exciting. You put out a new product. You got something that you're proud of. You've been building for a long time. When you launched it day one, how did it feel?
It felt really poignant, honestly. I was in my office by myself, and I think I took a moment to just check in with myself and say, like, this is when it happens. It's quiet and nobody's around and nobody seems to care, but this is the second one, minute one, hour one of that. And I fully expected nothing to happen on the launch day, and nothing happened. There were no signups. Nobody was breaking down the doors. But that takes no waving at my understanding and belief in this business. There's just so much work to do around sales, around communication. One of the challenges we have is properly explaining what HomeRunner is. It's and who are we talking to? Because we do have a few audiences that we talk to, such as somebody who already has a website, somebody who wants to build the website themselves, somebody who is ready to work with somebody they love. You could be us, because we still continue to offer websites to the right customer, but we also are growing a team of experts that are web agencies. Typically, we would see as competitors. Now HomeRunner is basically empowering any web professional who is comfortable building a WordPress website to deliver as good a direct booking website as they are able to build around the engine, because the engine is proven. The engine will work across 6 PMSs: Hostfully, Guesty Pro, Hostaway, Hospitable, Logify, and Honores. And we're talking to more PMSs, because I think we want to add at least another 3 or 4 to this fold. But now these agencies are able to use HomeRunner to build fantastic direct booking websites without having to have that full-time dev team and spend years developing it and worry about fundraising in order to get this off the ground. We did all the hard work.
No, I love it. And so I'm using it. I have had zero issues with it, and we're getting our direct bookings. But
Excellent.
I wanna transition a little bit because I want to talk about technology with you.
Please.
I am a big user of OpenAI. I pay my $200 a month subscription. I'm using it for all different kind of things. How are you using AI in your day to day right now?
Wow. That's a big topic. And I will say that this journey, this founding journey and the Hudson Creative Studio journey, if it did not coincide with release of AI as technology accessible to everyone, I'm not sure where the agency and the software would be. It's been such a tremendous help from day one. And I will say the large part of my use of AI, and that's I pay for GPT, OpenAI GPT, and I pay for Claude, and I pay for them both. I don't have the $200 subscription. I think I need to better understand how I can make use of that but I think the winds are blowing that way. The agents are where it's at. But I use it as a think tank. I use it to workshop ideas because I have so much going through my head, and without an outlet, uh, ends up being trapped in there. It can get stale, and I'm not sure. I second guess a lot of these things. But one of the ways I use it is maybe it's like do a brain dump. I will record an audio or even like a Loom video that I share with nobody, and I will ramble. I will ramble for 10, 20, 30 minutes, just all the things. Like if I was talking to a real person, they would just say like, all right, look at the time. I got to get going.
Mhm.
If I think I left the stove on, right? But so I do this recording, this long form, just capturing all of my thoughts and concerns, jumping around from topic to topic, and I take the transcript of that. I take it into AI, and then I just tease it apart, and I just what are the patterns? What am I thinking about? What am I not thinking about? What are the threats? What are my opportunities? And then I just go down each of those rabbit holes, and I come out with hands full of gems every time.
It's amazing. That's why I want people, if anything, to take away from this. Yes, if you need a website and you need some help, make sure to use Hudson Creative. But I think I've talked to so many people still not using AI the way you're talking about it. I think that there's so many different use cases for it. Is your team using it to help code and find bugs and different things as well?
Yes, sir. As of very recently, we're using Devin by Cognition as basically an AI, employee that is ready to work directly in our code and handle things. And our developers, it took them a few days to kind of familiarize themselves, understand how to talk to Devin. But now our dev team is just immediately scaled in the capacity.
So cool. Is there anything that you're excited about that you see it being used? Because you're building websites that I'm sure people are saying, hey, I want an AI chatbot or something to help personalize. Is there something you see coming in to your world with that?
Yes, I think so. We are piloting this product that creates AI agents that use API endpoints for data sourcing. What this means is rather than just providing it, blocks of text, PDFs, etc. Um, if you have a system, which we do, that just has a ton of data, and all of this data is organized based on how an API call is asking for it, and just to take a step back, this is what HomeRunner's infrastructure basically is. There's a large central server. We call it central server, central. And that is the server that handles all of the API communications between PMSs, gets all the property data, availability, pricing, reviews, descriptions, everything. Then that server talks to individual websites through the plugin, delivers all the data asynchronously, which is great because for the larger customers, in the earlier days, we would have to run this schedule sync across all properties. And sometimes every property has to do 15 or more API calls to get current. And say somebody has 40, 50, 150 properties, those websites would go to a crawl and the servers would scream and cry. So we fixed that by removing the need for a full synchronization on schedule and connected it through what's called webhooks, meaning that anytime Central has a new piece of data, it kind of dings the
Yep.
website, kind of rings the bell, and the website sources and gets just that piece of data and nothing else. So it becomes asynchronous, and all of that load is removed. So the central is built around that, and we already have all of those endpoints in place. Now this product is coming in, and we're able to create these kind of schema templates around what each agent can have access to as far as, well, authentication, but also the types of data, whether it's an agent that deals with availability or specifically with the guest behavior on the website. And then they can be prompted to not just answer a question, but generate reports, generate graphs and reports and insights, business intelligence. And that's something that we're adding to HomeRunner within the customer dashboard. That's another piece of HomeRunner is adjacent to the central server is a customer dashboard that knows everything about the customer properties, shows business data, of course, like how much, how many bookings are coming through, what is the revenue of the past week, week over week, what is the conversion rate, everything that we know about the website, which is everything, but also the guest behavior. We track things like what are the searches that guests are making, what amenities are they picking, how many people are they searching for, these patterns emerge. And if you feed it to AI and ask for patterns without even the beautiful thing with the AI and data is that it's not as important to know what you are going to get out of it. It's way more important to have as much data as humanly possible, and then workshop what are all the possible things that could come out of it. Because answers are limiting.
Yep.
Questions is where it's at.
I like that quote. I'm going to keep that one. All right, Ellie, I do have one last question for you. So you are now a successful hospitality business owner, but if young Ellie was coming out of yeshiva right now, university, and was asking for your advice and you could whisper in young Ellie's ear, what advice would you give him?
Invest in yourself, believe in yourself. All the strength is in there. Don't don't overreach. Stay grounded. You got it.
And it's great advice for anybody and anything that they're doing. Well, Ellie, thank you again for joining us here on the podcast. For listeners, make sure if you found anything valuable in this podcast, we shared a lot about technology and branding and marketing. Make sure to share this with somebody because I'm sure they're going to also feel like they got some value from it. Make sure to check out Hudson Creative Studio if you are in need of a website that is super powered, because I can vouch for that. It does a great job. And as always, make sure stay hospitable, everybody. We'll see you next time.